So I have to kick again to go for some, but I'll proceed from there. Yeah, so we're going to look for it. Going to talk about the topic today, women in politics and leadership. As the African Union Agenda 2063 stipulates that one of the key factors to enhance that vision is empowering women, and women have played an integral role in society building and peace building and economic building in Africa. I'm not the one going to discuss that topic today, where our panelists are having, two of them having problems joining, but we'll start, we can, they can find us on the way. We have wonderful panelists here. I'll give time for each one of them to introduce themselves, and we'll dive in today's meeting discussion. So I'll start with Rahada Elahadu. She's from Egypt, and she works at the African Union office, African Union Youth Envoy office as a communication officer. Besides that, she's also an African Rebirth ambassador from Egypt. So welcome, Rahad.
Hi. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll have also Bitania Lulu from Ethiopia. She's a researcher at an international organization called Center for Research and Cooperation. So she's also founder of many youth organizations championing leadership. When I was reading her bio, I found that one of the key things African Rebirth have similar with the organization started is leadership, empowering young African leaders. So besides that, she sits also on the chair of nominating committee of youth groups, mainly for children and youth. So welcome, Bitania.
Thanks for having me, Anna.
You're welcome. So I'll allow people to introduce more deeply about themselves, and we'll see kickstart in going into deep discussion. So you can say a few words about yourself, more depth of what you do, and we'll kickstart going into discussion, deeper discussion of the topic.
Okay, before we start, I see a couple of people that are not connected to their audio. So maybe you can send them a message in the chat box for them to check their audio settings so they don't miss it.
Good observation.
Yeah, tell them to connect to their audio. So I can start with my brief introduction.
Sure.
My name is Bitania Lulu Berhanu. I'm a young African women leader involved in a number of organizations and initiatives, working from grassroots level to all the way to international level to influence policy to be more inclusive of young people and also women. I, like already said, I'm a researcher at the Center for Dialogue, Research and Cooperation, which is an international think tank focusing on policy research and analysis on Horn of Africa and the continent in general, more focused on peace and security and development. So I research in depth about the continental policies and how we can influence it from the peace and security and development sector. But aside from that, I chair the Youth Advisory Parliament for a leading health organization to ensure that youth are leaders of sexual and reproductive rights and public health. The organization is AMREF Health Africa, and also I'm a young designer at the Population Services International. Both of them are really present in Africa, affecting, influencing better lives and health. And yeah, I also am on a board from UN Major Group on Youth and Children, we try to influence global policies and to make spaces for young people for meaningful engagement of youth on the global level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abitania. Impressive. Yes, Rahela.
Thank you, and nice to meet you all. My name is Raghda Chaloudi. I'm from Egypt, as Ainuk have introduced me. I'm a media and communication sciences researcher at Egypt, and I am a volunteer at the African Union Commission, deployed as a communication assistant. So I served in the Office of the Youth Envoy and currently on the youth division under the HRST. And at the same time working as creative consultant at Creative Motion UAE, which is advocacy and media agency for a couple of governmental organizations. And gender aspect, I'm a member of International Federation of Business and Professional Women, I'm a member of Young PPW for the Global Forum of Media Development in Egypt. I had a gender and human rights advocacy experience working on various years on National Council for Women and also common projects with the UN Women. I'm happy to be here today again. Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation. There are women doing a lot of great things and women leaders in their respective parties. So thank you very much. Today's topic is very kind of provocative, and I'm just curious to hear your thoughts. So today's topic states that women participation in politics and leadership, a strategy to achieve the African Union Agenda 2063. For those who are not familiar with the Agenda 2063, it's defined as an agenda 2063 is a strategic framework for the socio-economic transformation of the continent for the next 50 years. It builds on and seeks to accelerate the implementation of the past and existing continental initiatives for growth and sustainable development. So how will women, help this agenda come to its, dream coming true? And I will just follow up with a few questions, beginning from Rahela. I said a question here from Rahela, and everyone can participate in it, and the panelists. Whose responsibility do women's leadership and participation in politics rest upon?
Thank you. That's interesting. Actually, I'm a bit confused from where to start, but maybe I can start from the main, narrowing on the main institutions, and that's it. So I think it came, if I said it came from me, and everyone can say so. So it basically come of intergovernmental institutions, governments, laws, and by the same time, it's civil society and individuals through different aspects. So let me first spotlight the fact that yes, there are many progress happening recently. There have been a notable success of women's movement, local, national, at the national and the local level, and also at what we see from various African women leaders are leading on the civil societies, and also one of the main panelists with us can speak more about that. But I think that the often is missing is that getting those women voices heard, especially on the vulnerable women and those who are in the rural area. So I think that we need to go beyond and focus on bringing out people and leaving no one's behind. So yes, governments, institutions have a critical role, but in stopping gender-based violence and legal frameworks and all of that. But also, I think it's a common effort, and not only because we may have a lot of strategies and laws, but we need to co-implement. I'm not only saying implementation, but co-implement. We use the civil society and different and individual efforts and all of that to have the bridge between turning into the advocacy, turning it into implementation, re-implementation. And also this can be aligned with advocacy. So maybe like three main steps we can, or actually four main steps toward that. We can start saying that we are not leaving anyone behind. We of the grassroots and their inclusion are the key. However, the failure of having their agenda at the discussion level has led in them being left behind, way or another. So when you're not involving someone in something regarding to him, so he feels he's not involved. So this is number one, and this is not only on women as a gender, but on women, on a vulnerable women or women in rural area, education, and all of that. So we need to make sure that we're not leaving anyone behind while we're talking. So yeah, as a key of principle, Agenda 2063 and also Agenda 23 for women, without women, and that includes all women. So yeah, that's a part. And also women influence on civic society that makes them closer to the grassroots levels, understand the main workplace issues and all of that. Second thing, in the media, that we really need to bring the valuable experiences of women leadership into the media and take a part of showing this, creating a platform for women to discuss their failures, successes, practices, and all of that. So they also encourage fellows to get the lead and the keys and capacity that build them to be a leaders, instead of advocating we want the first president, you want the first minister, we want the first whatever, but we're not giving them the keys to do that. So we can, if we are focusing on young girls and women education and like financial inclusion and all of that, we are advocating for leadership. So yeah, give them the rules and then they can do. Last thing I would say, but not least, is just like learning from what doesn't actually work. We need to stop having the same role of figure a bit flexible if we are following on a strategy, because not all the countries are the same and also not all continents are the same. So yeah, we have a main African aspiration, we have the main goal, but also we have to think about of flexible strategies and flexible tools to create that. We need to know what actually works and how to improve what doesn't work in regards to the plan and everything. We need to reevaluate the approaches and strategies so we can identify what works for us best as women. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. Just to follow up, so the issue of perception, when you say that it's our responsibility, all of us. It's not someone specialized on the responsibility. It's a collective responsibility. And I want to begin, Britannia. How to what extent does Yes, how can we change narratives? How can we change narratives and perception so that society embraces women as development partners?
Thank you, Anna, for that question. So there are a lot of feminist movements and gender equality movements, but it's not well accepted in Africa because they feel like women are trying to overrule men. But it's not a fight against one gender, but it's against about a system that causes injustices. And this needs to be understood well by our fellow Africans, because culturally, women have been obviously suppressed, and there have been a lot of history and systematic injustices for women, including economic rights, land ownership, even women have the double responsibilities of raising children and starting a family. So they're not really empowered enough to go to school or to lead, to hold leadership positions. So these movements are a threat to the practices that have been common for the last 100 years or so. But how we can change the narrative into defying patriarchal society or the patriarchal system is by showcasing the positive stories and the positive strides that women leaders have done. In all our African histories, we have prominent female personalities that have contributed greatly to our country's development, to our country's bravery, and to our country's liberation as well. I can give an example of Ethiopia, for example, being the one country that has never been colonized in Ethiopia, in Africa. When we were mobilizing ourselves to defeat the Italians, it is the Empress Taitu Betul that led and mobilized armies, both women and men, to defeat Italians and gain independence. And she's very much endorsed and accepted and respected till this day, not only Emperor Menelik, but the wife herself as well. She is a legendary queen that has done great thing for the history of Ethiopia. So by showcasing those kind of stories, that was from 100 years ago, but of course there are so many women personalities that have contributed to betterment of education, betterment of the lives of children, betterment of economy, inventing various things in businesses and all of that, and showcasing those stories to support that if women are invested in, they're actually partners and leaders of development, instead of focusing on rivalry between two genders, because that's not what we're fighting for. We're fighting to break the system that discriminates women from achieving their own potentials. And by investing in women, women are capable of leading their countries to the development that we want to reach, and also to move Africa forward, as 52% of the population is women. So investing in the majority of the population obviously will result in the development of the continent and prosperity of the continent. So just focusing on those positive stories without fighting with cultural restraints, but magnifying those cultural identities, which can actually uplift women, can actually change the narrative in having both men and women fighting for equality, gender equality, and understanding women as development partners.
Awesome. So showcasing positive stories of great growth, like the Empress you're talking about.
Yeah, Empress Taitu. She should be talked about. Everyone knows Emperor Menelik because he defeated the Italians.
Yeah.
He actually did the 70% of the job, in my view, and history can back me up on that. So let's showcase the women leaders that have actually taken Africa forward to ensure that empowering women can result in prosperity of the continent.
Awesome. So just like you said, we know globally, I'm not from Ethiopia, I'm from East African region, but we know as Emperor Menelik as the architect of the revolution and the mastermind. So we didn't know, personally, I didn't know about her. So telling those stories, but that pushes me to my next question. Do you think how far have women embraced leadership though? Because these stories, some of the stories have been, told, but I agree they have not been told in full, but how far or how have women embraced leadership? To what extent in Africa, specifically in Africa? Raheli, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I was thinking while you're, I think that as a communication, I'm speaking from a communication aspect and a media aspect. So and also based on experience and interacting with these women, we don't have all these women on the spot. Main part because as I said, firstly that, and as also my colleague said, we have a lot of people who are leaders, and we need to focus on, but we're not getting in mind that what leadership is. Mostly we translate that leaders are the first president, or leader is the women who is the first scientist, women who did this and that, but we need to understand beyond the concept of leadership, because it's not, we need to differentiate a bit between leadership and positions. And if we did that, I think that we would be more able to represent and have our different aspects and remembering them, also to create these platforms thinking of leaders, others, and also we need to keep thinking on who's next, what's doing next, what's being done in different aspects. So especially after, like post-COVID, we have a lot of women leaders who took the leadership and doing sanitizers, doing every single thing. So it's a new normal leadership happening, like social media advocacy. So yeah, it's something that it's not fixed, it's flexible, continuous, one doing the work for another one. So yeah.
Okay.
We face a lot of leaders.
Okay. Just so your internet's kind of freezing. So some of the great points are lost in there. So is there any way you can adjust to it? So some of your great points are lost and you can't hear them, but I'll get back to you. So participation, like you said, women have emerged. So the concept, society defines leadership, or traditionally that the lead is only the president, the prime minister, and something. But you are looking at it from the bottom-up approach, from society, right? Leading organizations, leading corporations, leading families. So that's very good. I want to bring in Britannia. To what extent have women in Africa embraced leadership?
That's a very good question. And Rada really raised a great point as well. We need to differentiate between leadership and the positions that women hold. So I'll just start with the higher level engagement. Around the time when I was born, women leadership, like as a head of state, was not really thinkable, because most of our leaders in Africa were men. But right now, I'll just speak of the example of Ethiopia. We have a head of state, which is a woman, the very first president as a female in the present day Ethiopia, regardless of the empresses that we had in the long down history line. And at some point, we had 50% of our ministers as women. That was a brave move done by our prime minister. The kind of impact they have done, it's yet to be assessed, because just changing the minister without reforming the ministry itself may not result in a lot of changes. But image-wise and mindset change-wise, it did a great job, because young girls can now think that they can grow up to be ministers, they can grow up to be presidents, and these roles are not just left for men. And representation is extremely crucial to change the mindset and to break the cycles that cultural restraints have put on women. So I think it was a great start. And this has been done in a number of African countries. For example, Rwanda is actually #1 in the gender equality metrics that the UN has studied. They're the first ones to ensure that at least 40% of each organization has women employees. And in the parliament as well, they ensured gender parity. And that's really also created economic growth, and a lot of corruption went down. So many positive achievements have been made because of the gender representation, because there's a lot that women bring into the table. We are leaders, we are mothers, we are nurturers, we have the sixth sense that men don't have, we have different outlook in life. So mixing that expertise with men and working together can actually result in great strides. And we see even in the COVID-19 responses, countries led by women have proved to have a much better COVID-19 control compared to the rest of the world. We see the Prime Minister of New Zealand she has done an absolute fantastic job in beating COVID-19 twice from the country and declaring the country completely COVID-19 free. And also she's done major changes on the laws to empower women and to ensure that women can work in their, can work comfortably and exploit their potentials. Just the other day, she introduced a new rule which can give women a paid leave when they have miscarriages with their partners. So it's not just the things that were just left for women as women issues, she made it as partnership. So when women get maternity leave, the partners also get paternity leave. So that is a notion to show that we're all in this together. We're partners and we go forward together. So I think a lot has been done and a lot can be learned from that. But that's just all high level. Of course, it's touching the lives of others, but we can also look at the grassroots level to each individual families, because leadership starts from home. It's not just big positions on heading a country that's considered leadership. Leadership starts from raising the right child, thinking with no bias of gender inequality, treating children equally, assigning them equal roles, for example, and just judging them by how they perform and not by their gender. Luckily, I went to an all-girls school and I didn't even know that gender could be a restraint, because some of my classmates are footballers. Some of them went to pursue science. You can be anything you set your mind to without having to think about what gender you are. And we need to create that kind of gender equal world from the grassroots level, from each family member, all the way to our schools and going up to the high level.
Yeah. Thank you. Breaking it more down, like from the top to bottom. But now let's talk about real power now. We can empower women in civil organization and corporations. Now let's a little bit jump to real power, where decisions are made and where people's lives are determined by the decision ahead. A lot of countries have made progress. Rwanda has made progress, 60% of women in cabinet. I think ranks #1 in the world. Statistics are very appealing, impressive, but I want to understand your thoughts from you. To what extent do those women leaders influence policy? Because politics is not position mostly; it's about power. The difference between you from the source of power between you. That's politics. So, to what extent do these women leaders? These shocking statistics, the improvement, to what extent do we have real power to influence policy? Because that's also should be, looked at. You can jump in. I'm just following up questions. Rahel, you want to jump in, or Betania, wherever you want?
Okay, I can go ahead. Yes. I think that's something any of the panelists cannot answer, because it needs assessment and research and monitoring and evaluation. It's not something that we can say as a continental level, but each organization needs to be assessed on the level of leadership exercise that they give for the women leaders that they put in place. Because like I said earlier, just appointing a female minister and expecting everything to change is not really feasible, because there's a system that's been set, and we need to evaluate if the system is really inclusive of women voices. It's not just the head of the institution that should be measured, but all the other women that work in the organization. So when policies are crafted, of course, there needs to be inclusion of women and also young people. We cannot defy the reality of the continent, 70% of the continent being under the age of 35. So the majority needs to decide on all the policies that gets imposed upon them. And women, as the majority of the population, also hold that responsibility and right. So I don't think it's just us that can just tell you that, yeah, of course, women are being participated, and their voices are being included in policy, because this needs really in-depth assessment. But I think overall there's been a lot of strides, a lot of improvements, and numbers are showing that things are improving. But to actually see the impact on the ground, to see how much tangible changes that has been done, I think we're yet to see more. We need more assessment on that.
Okay, I saw Bitani is saying very optimistic from the optimistic approach. How about you, Rahad? What do you think about it?
Thank you. Yeah, do you hear me now? That's better?
Now you better. Yeah, better.
So I'm just reading the chat box. Someone said like women have had an influence of politics. For instance, in Kenya, she said an example on the senator pads were expensive, and then they raised it into the parliament and fought for that, so they got it tax-free. So that's leadership happened. And yeah, that actually related to the first part of the questions when you were asking us to what extent do we know about leadership. So here kind of leadership, and also to tell you, we cannot give an exact statistics to what, but we see like lately here in Egypt, for example, we have the National Council for Women who always advocate for implementing these laws. So yeah, we can see lately the parliament 50-50 calls for ministers, calls for the first lady who did this, who did that. So that's the part on advocating on what to do. And at the same time, yeah, it's on advocating to have the first doing that. I know we're not going into the least we're going on the right track.
Okay, so advocacy very key role. You know, having power. So that brings me to my next question. And I'll keep encouraging, like the audience should, you know, type in. I'll read if you want to ask, contribute. Just type in your question in the chat box. I'll read it loud, and you know, if you want to ask anyone or have a contribution. But I also will also give a chance to the audience to open up to, you know, to have their ideas passed across. So, but yeah, so you know, women in leadership, you can't be assessed by in great depth. I agree with that. It requires a lot of statistics and on-ground research. But what's your view on affirmative action? Because there's been a lot of controversy on that. So, is it really is it empowering women, or just giving an opinion just because you're a woman? What's your view on affirmative action?
Okay, that's a very good question. That's a question that's been discussed, especially now that it's a Women's Month in March. That's been raised in a lot of forums that I've been a part of. But we cannot deny the past. We cannot deny the inequalities that women had to face and still facing to this day. So affirmative action was created to create this space that was not touchable for women. All leadership positions and all these office jobs were 100% left to men. So there should have been a rule. There must have been a way to impose a rule where women can actually access those positions as well, their workspaces, those economic rights, those education opportunities, and all of that. Everything was completely closed off to one gender, which was a patriarchal system, which was because of the patriarchal system that we all are living in till this day. So affirmative action was imposed to create space for women to actually access those opportunities that they needed to access. It was needed, much needed when it was imposed, but let's not confuse affirmative action to assigning people that are not qualified for the job. That's not what it's trying to do. If I'm an engineer and if there's a colleague of mine that's also an engineer, we should both apply for the job and be given equal opportunity to prove ourselves to actually earn that position. Back then, because he was a man and women engineers are not, common, everyone could just, go for the man. Even right now, a lot of people would feel comfortable hiring men for a lot of positions. There are male-dominated fields, and there are just jobs left for women. Of course, women are supposed to be in the kitchen and all of that, people think. But right now, when men started joining cooking, now it's a fancy job, chef for men, yay. But for the longest time, because women were doing it, they were not respected for it.
Yeah.
But back to my point, affirmative action was created to create the spaces that women weren't able to access to prove themselves. But once that equal ground has been set for both genders, then it's up to each individual as a human being to prove their expertise and capacities to earn the opportunities that can be accessed to both of them equally.
Great. So you think it is still very relevant? It is very relevant.
It's been relevant for a long time. It still is relevant in some cases, but not everywhere, because some things have been improved.
Okay.
So when of course, when there's still injustices, affirmative action is needed to straighten the wrong. But in places that have improved the injustices and created equal grounds for both genders to be considered with their expertise, then affirmative action is not needed because they both can prove themselves. They've been given the opportunity to prove themselves.
Okay, so you're saying the ground is not yet clear. So when ground is clear, everything should become to normal. So good. I'll get back to you. How about what do you think? What do you think about affirmative action, Roheda?
So yeah, I can agree more with you, Pitania. And actions and coming to actions, I think it's more important to tailor the actions, because we cannot insist on only percentage level, or like we need 50%, or we are not concentrating, we're not focusing on who these women are or what they are, the criteria. It's not only allowing women, empowering women to be empowering women, but we also need to, empowering women needs the creating of a platform that gives them the right. Same as when you say like we have a percentage of people with disabilities, there's a lot of people with disabilities, but we need to know which people to do in the right place. That exactly, I think, what Pitania was telling. It's not on being a woman for having women and women empowering women. Yes, that's important, but also we need to realize that we are all countries, and all actually on individual levels are different, and also in the countries level are different. So we don't have a parameter to say, to measure which country is empowering them, which country. For example, one of the chat people wrote that Kenya, the vice president is always keen to have his, the president is keen to have his vice president as a woman. So yeah, that may be impossible in another country in Africa or in the world. So we need to focus on empowering for a cause, for a reason, and at the same time don't be pushed by having numbers. Yeah, okay, in Kenya they do this, in another country we need to do that. No, we actually need to empower. What happens in Kenya, for example, in X country, no, we need to increase education. Here in Egypt, we have invested in education, so we are investing in women in parliament, and that's it. We don't have to have a common like measurement, but we need to tailor these actions in each country. Thank you.
Okay. Different countries, different realities. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah, just to add on that.
Sure.
Yeah, different countries, different realities, and also, of course, different sectors should be considered. For example, in education, 50 years back, there was basically barely any women in any classroom. But because of affirmative action, I think at least in elementary school level, most African countries have reached gender parity. So for every boy, there's a girl. So it's like 50%. That's been achieved. So there's no
Right.
need to have affirmative action anymore in elementary school. So you move on to the sectors that are more still unequal to apply that affirmative action. So each sector should be assessed. And once gender equality has been achieved, there's no need for affirmative action. And what works in my country may not work in the neighboring country. So each government should assess their own countries to intervene accordingly.
Very good. On that point is each country should be assessed, each region should be assessed with its own reality. So I want to get your idea. How do we, because most of the feminist approach is Western, how do we decolonize the feminist approach to suit the African reality? Because what the women rights in Geneva, that's too different from some part of rural Ethiopia. They're two completely different. How do we bridge that gap to bring a closer understanding and everything? And I've seen feminists, the Pan-African feminists in Seoul, are using Western approaches to solve African issues. How do we decolonize the feminist approach to suit our women? Right.
Ragda, I don't know if you can help me here. I don't think feminism is a Western concept. We have one of the oldest feminists that are African, one of which is an Egyptian lady called Nawal El-Saadawi.
Sorry, Britannia. Just to be clear, I'm not saying the feminist is Western, but the modes.
Yeah, okay.
Modes,
I
yes,
understand your question.
Yeah,
I just wanted to clarify. Because
okay.
of course there's extreme feminism that does not apply to Africa. But the concept of feminism was not Westernized. It was not a Western concept. It was just a common ideology for women because there have been injustices on women, restraining women in Africa, in Arab countries, in Middle East. So those women that are the founding mothers of feminism are actually from here in the Middle East and African region, not just Westernized, not from the Westerners. Feminism is misperceived, in my view. It's at its simplest meaning, it means gender equality. Yes. But because it's only one gender that's been restrained and that's been, put down, we have to address which gender that's been facing the injustices, which is the female gender. So feminism is just to bring equality to both genders, but addressing specifically that females have been, put down by the culture, by the society, by different religious views. Yeah. And that's to the simplest form. It's just fighting injustices that are towards women. And still, I think inequality, we need to understand the realities that's happening in Africa. If women are not economically empowered, they can never be given you can't just give them like political rights and for them to go out and vote if they cannot access the land that they farm in. If they're working twice as hard as the farmers in the countryside, but they don't have rights to own it. They're legal citizens of each country, but most of African countries in the rural side, especially rural areas, still defy the rights of women of land ownership, which is insane. These are the kind of things that feminism wants to fight because they're both human beings. They were born into the country, so they should have rights to access the land equally, especially if they're both working on it, if they're both farmers. And in the countryside, child marriages are still very, very common in Africa, everywhere in Africa. I don't think there's any country that's immune from child marriages. And who's being affected? Females. Because we're not marrying two teenagers, it's the young girls that are the girl child that's being affected by this cultural exercise. Yeah. There's female genital mutilation that's really health complications for women. A lot of, I can go on. There's gender-based violence, of course, happening both on men and women, but most of the perpetrators are men, no? I've never heard of a woman raping a man, a boy, or a girl. Both genders may be victims, but perpetrators are men. So feminism wants to address this gender equality and injustices that are mostly towards the female gender. And we still are trying to get that justice because we have not reached an equal world. Even in the Western world, we're yet to reach equality.
Awesome, awesome. Yes, Rahel, you wanna go ahead? You can go ahead.
I think during the first question, yeah, do you hear me now?
Yes, yes, yeah, I hear you now.
I can't really agree more, and I was a bit laughing on the first question when we were talking about this, like this is a Western concept, and I was like thinking of myself, why can some people? I know that you are not mentioning that feminism in the concept because you introduced that, but yeah, a lot of people actually think that, okay, why are we doing like Western people? We are not a USA to ask for women's rights, but maybe the concept can be new. What's new is not women are leaders or women are taking leadership, because they
Absolutely.
are historically taking the leadership.
Mhm.
But the new thing is that keep advocating. So maybe the increase in the advocacy or using of the communication innovations and trying more to be heard, that's new for some people. That's why they said, like, okay, we don't know. But if you normalize this concept of women's rights, if you came and asked someone, education is a human right, he was like, okay, yeah, education is a human right. So yeah, and women is a human. So yeah, it's our right. That's it. It's on simplifying, and that's actually what I think we need to work on simplifying the gender and typing concepts and to simpler. We need to really to understand that empowering women is not giving her a favor. It's a human basic right, something like we eat, we drink, we go, we work, and we need to be empowered to do. So that's it. We need to stop actually narrating the women as vulnerables who always need to be empowered, because they are empowered. Sometimes we need to ask for giving them the space to go for whatever they are trying to do. Not asking for extra thing, but when we are coming to ask on a corporation having 50-50, so we are asking for fair treatment. When we are asking for stopping harassment or something like that, we are asking for basic human rights. Child marriage, as my colleague said, we're asking about basic human rights. So yeah, as really countries need to have these policies implemented, and people need to change this perspective that no, it's not USA, it's not Canada, it's not other country who have women rights. All of us are the same gender, so we need to be way or another having these safety spaces.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your perspective. I ask you that because last summer I was working with World WCA, which is based in Geneva. So we are conducting a feminist approach, like rebuilding a new model African. So we were shocked by the results. What the Middle East people wanted to us the equality, as gender equality, was completely different from the Eastern Europe. And in an African perspective, was completely different. I was like, okay, there's always a cultural crush and something, but basing on what you shared is a more understanding of culture, society, because just like you said, I don't think if anything is bad, there is no context of culture. Something is bad. If something is good, it is good to many people. Respecting women rights, giving them equal education. I don't think even people who might have problems with that, if they have their daughters, you may not want to see your daughter not having equal opportunities like going to school. So just to clarify that it's like cultural phenomenon in society. These are sisters, aunties, mothers. So the way you want to be your mother or your sister to be treated, just have a national perspective on that. If things were like that, they couldn't have problems right now. One more last question and we open it up. So one key question now. How do, in empirically and realistically, how do women increase in women in leadership spark growth, either economic, either social, or the political? How does it empower growth? Not forgetting the African Agenda 2063. How does it spark prosperity in economics, in the politics, in social affairs? You wanna go first, Rahel?
Okay, I think I'm jumping on that because maybe to have a real image on the change on advocating for that. The main concern is that as much as women advocate for empowerment and the change, somehow it came to be when women reach a leadership level or like a policy level or everything, I know that agendas might change or anything could happen. So I'm not like generalizing, but this is the fact that we can start as advocating and then we have a leadership what we advocated for, so we still have a lot of gaps. So I think that it's best when we have a renewable agenda based on Agenda 2063, the African agenda, but also we have a strategy and agenda that what we need to do. We need to work on education, and then whatever thing happen on that, we will start advocating for education. We need to set goals, real goals that we need to achieve. And also women empowering women, but also we need to empower women to empower other women. So it doesn't stop at my level or doesn't stop at my someone else after me level, because I can see a lot of criteria in you and then I bring you up on a platform and you don't bring anyone later after you. So it's keeping the ball, it's keeping the circle continuing by empowering other people who wants to do something, changing something. Yeah, this is my point. So keeping
Okay, thanks for
Okay.
then to follow up on that. I mentioned this on one other forum that I was in. There was a study that was done globally on how effective women leadership is. So women, like cabinets that have more women in their ministerial levels, we're seeing that they've made more investments in the healthcare and education system, which yields better human development in the countries. And peace deals that had women leaders participating meaningfully lasted over 15 years, as opposed to the peace deals that were made by male leaders. And a lot of governments that have a lot of women in their leadership positions have improved their land ownership rules, and they've made a lot of investment in agriculture, and they've become 20 to 30% more successful than male leaders. So this should be a reason for every government to understand the value, that unique value that gender equality and gender representation brings to the economies of their own countries. Because like I said earlier, women have their own kind of views on life. They bring different views to the table. Yeah. It's not just guns and money for them, but it's because they have nurturing personalities. Even nature is impersonated by Mother Nature, right? Even nature is female. So female, when you give her something, she replicates it and makes it bigger. So when you invest in one woman, you uplift the community in the country. When you educate one man, you just educate one man. That's that's a reality. So this should be an
Yeah.
incentive for every government to actually ensure the meaningful participation and leadership of women. But these are just stats and proofs. But going all the way down, trickling down to family levels, because
Mm.
characters and beliefs and mindset are built in the family level. When we try to empower women, let's not forget the men too, because they'll be going out and working with those women, with those men. So men also need to accept the fact that women can lead. So from an earlier age, we need to invest in children and youth to ensure that there's gender equality, for both genders to respect each other, and for everyone to invest in themselves to become anything they want, regardless of their gender. So investing in children, investing in education systems, investing in each families to create the lasting change in mindset will result in all the developments that we would like to see in Africa.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. Development starts from family. If you want a very respected person or male, you're gonna check their family background. If they have, proper ways of upbringing, they always be respected and responsible men. So thank you very much. For now, let's open it to the audience to hear their contribution and some of the questions and the insights about this topic. Oh, okay. Okay, so that was a kind of instruction. Anyway, so can someone mute, please, if some kind of noise coming? Oh, okay. Okay, so open to the audience now. If you have a question, just raise up your hand or just shoot directly and we hear you. Very open now. Yes, Malwak Tebu. I'm sorry if I pronounce your name in a weird manner.
Yeah, it's okay. My name is Meilat Wagdababu. I'm from Ethiopia, and I've been listening, and this has been a really informative session. Thank you for holding it. I just want to ask Bitania, as a leader in Ethiopia, as a young leader, as a female leader in Ethiopia, what are personally, what are the you know the limitations or the things she noticed working with men, or the microaggressions she has endured working in this competitive era.
You can take it up, Bitania. I think the question directs to you.
I think both me and Ragda can answer this because I'm sure Ragda has also her own experiences of challenges. The answer is just being qualified, basically, investing in yourself, because as a woman, you have to prove yourself twice or three times or 1,000 times as much than your peer or your peer man. Anywhere you go, still, because the mindset is very restraining for women, you always need to be qualified and need to know what you're talking about. You need to invest in yourself. Self-growth never ends. So when you're qualified, they can't really say anything. They will try to stop you. They'll try to defy you. But once you know what you're talking about, once you know that you're qualified, once you know that you've invested in yourself, no right and no place is given to you, but you go and earn it. You grab the opportunities. You create the opportunities for yourself. If there's no chair for you at the table, you bring your own folding chair. So you have to be prepared to fight all the injustices that you may face in everyday encounter, all the way to the leadership positions that you want to aim for. So of course, women need to invest in themselves because everyone's eyeing you. Even when the 50% of ministers were assigned as women, every Ethiopian started being interested in what they have done. So what have they done? What is the ministry doing? But no one has questioned what the men before them have done. But when there's a woman assigned, everyone's watching from every direction. So they need to be ready to prove themselves and to clear the way for the next women to come.
Awesome, awesome. Your own way, you know, it all comes back to you as a person to navigate. So Rahela, you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's on building your own capacity. You have, if you are especially if you're in a competitive atmosphere or anything that people will come to you. Okay, what you did. You may have the same position as a man do, but once you came, okay, what did you do? Because they are expecting you to do something. However, they don't expect a man who held the position to do the same thing. But you have to really believe that you can do. And my personal thought on that to stop, you would be put in a comparison, but the smart way to do that is to get yourself out, and that's why you will be on the right track. Because if you kept doing for proving that you're capable of doing something such as man, you're not maybe do it at the same quality that you do yourself. So it's based on being really understanding and trying to. I know that it's. I know that all of us and myself have based and come to the point that no, you may not be understanding, and someone else who because of the man in the same career, he understands more. I'm not yet sure why, but you need to just wait on not to go into this fight, not to do your energy into proving that you can, rather than just do it.
Awesome. You know, your capabilities. So I see 3 hands. So I've started Grolier, then Jay and Doreen. So let's go in that order. And try to be quick so that others have also the chance to raise their views. So Gloria, it's your turn.
Oh, okay. So somebody would ask this question, like we have many groups being excluded from leadership position and not only women. So like why the emphasis on women? Like here in Africa, we know our politics can be divided based on ethnic and religion and basically other categories that we are divided on. Like for example, here in Kenya, there have been 2 tribes that have become president for the past like 4 elections. So like the minority tribes have not had the chance to be able to lead or to become president. So it's like the minority tribes have been put away in the positions of leadership. I'm not saying that women, because women can fall into I can be a woman from a minority tribe, and that can make it a challenge for me to lead just because basically I'm part of a minority. So what I'm asking is like for diversity, like as much as we fight for women in leadership, we should also look at diversity whereby we have everybody is part of leadership, whereby we have equality for everyone, equality for women, men, minority, ethnic groups, basically people from different race, religions. So basically I'm just asking for equality in diversity, and let's not just focus more on the emphasis for women. But I know women have been put down for a long time, but that's why it's time like we fight for equality for everyone.
Okay, absolutely. But it's just put in the context. Equality for everyone is paramount. There's no discussion about that. But just today's topic was specifically for women. That's why we're just talking about women. But thank you for bringing in that perspective. Equality for sure. Yes, Jay?
Yeah, thank you so much for giving me the floor, and I also appreciated the invitees, like the panelists. You have done so well, and I'm so proud of you. Basically, I just want to share the story of my mother. Yeah, because here in the Gambia, it was so tense. Out of 9 candidates, she was the only female, and then she was insulted, belittled, lost any kind of words. But then, luckily, she won and then became the first female elected mayor of the Gambia. But now, you see, what I usually say, women are societal builders. So if we have more of women leaders, to my own perspective, I believe that Africa will be let's say we'll do away with corruption, because women are more compassionate than men, and we should accept that reality that women are multitasking. They are good at multitasking. They are good at handling any kind of task. So it's just that men are just, to my own perspective, we usually feel threatened. But and again, also, what I will urge to those advocating for women's rights is that the message counts. How people understand it, that's how will they take it. That's it. But like if you come and then want to change people's mindset, you have to be on the same lane with them, change them regularly. But like if you come to anyhow trying to push away the African realities which were happening, it will be like a combating time. But to me, to my own perspective, that women's rights are very vital, because as a human, women's rights are human rights, and human rights of every human need to be respected, because nobody was asked why were you born with 2 ears. So these are inherent. So thank you.
Thank you, Jay. I don't think it was a question, but I was throwing a perspective. Thank you so much, Jay. Okay, Doreen.
Thank you, Mr. Enoch, for the recognition. Recalling what Madam Britannia has talked about, when you educate a woman, you educate a nation. And this is actually being seen in our societies, whereby a woman, if you educate her, actually she passes the same principles onto the child for the next generation. But however, my question is in line with what challenges have you faced while ensuring women participation in leadership in politics from the grassroots levels in Africa, knowing that actually in Africa, people's mindset was shifted towards men are supposed to take up leadership position. But however, in Africa, looking at what your roles are, what are your challenges, the biggest challenges you've encountered in this?
Good question. Okay.
Okay, I can jump in.
Sure.
Well, the biggest challenges remains to be the mindsets, like you've said, and almost all African countries, even globally, that's not been achieved, that's not been overcome yet. There are a lot of men with views that, even women with views that women are not able to lead nations and to lead big positions. We were joking about US politics the other day as well. When Hillary Clinton ran against Barack Obama, the majority of white male chose for a black man instead of choosing a woman. That's our just inside jokes, but still that mindset of women not being capable of leading nations, it's still everywhere in the world, especially in Africa, because it's culturally restraining. But like I said, it's still a work in progress. At least we can work on the young people, because young people can change their minds, and if they're empowered and if they're given the right skill sets, they're not as rigid as the previous generation. And that's the opportunity I see, because the African population, like I said earlier, 70% of it is under the age of 35, which means we still have the tendency to change our minds and to become the leaders that our nation expects us, regardless of the gender. So there's a huge opportunity to educate the next generation of leaders to defy this restraint put on women, especially in the countryside as well. We need to just change the way we approach things. We can't just say, yeah, women are leaders, but we show them what women leadership is. We show them in reality ministers doing great things, female ministers, female doctors, female pilots. We show them what all those expert sets have brought to the betterment of the country. seeing is believing, not just advocating for things. So showing them examples of what women have been able to achieve, even women peacemakers in the countryside. We have in the countryside what we call the Women Development Army. Those are women that are not even educated, but they go door to door and different development agendas, be it taking your child to healthcare, sending your child to education, and various development agendas that they run. They're the women development armies that have missed their opportunities in being educated, but they're saving the next generation by playing crucial parts in their communities, in the grassroots level, in the rural, very hard to reach areas of Africa. So we need to utilize those structures. We have women associations in the ground level. We have mothers supporting each other and saving money, harvesting, and all of that. So using those associations and already existing traditional and cultural structures to uplift and empower women and to change the mindset of the current youth and children to be acceptance of women leaders as nation builders, I think there's still room to be changed.
That's so deep. I guess it really sinks. Thank you very much, Rahila. Oh, you there?
I just can summarize the same that Britannia said in the lead by example. So that's it. Focusing on the next generation can be done through various ways, but the most important part is that lead them by example. And maybe to add on that, not only because the previous generation were raised and being silent into some aspects, so that doesn't mean that you have to raise your children on the same aspect. So that was the part that we're missing, because most of the things that happen is due to the lack of awareness that we have a law that for this. We just go for this doesn't happen in our community, this doesn't happen in our. So we need to understand that based on the fact that we are the majority of the continent, we will be at the majority of the world as young people as well. So we need to understand that we have a massive role to play and be empowered on that we can do the change, because we are the majority. Just believe that we are the majority, we can do the change, and balance between the advocacy and the real action. Thank you.
Awesome. Advocacy and real action. That's very good. Desmond?
Thank you, Enoch, for the opportunity, and thanks to the speakers for a wonderful, informative session. I just have a question specifically on religion, because we know that we have education system, and we have seen a lot of effort in terms of educating, let's say, girls or children who are girls to go to school, and probably try to change the mindset and change this idea of patriarchal society. But on the other hand, we have another form of education, which is somehow informal, and that's religious education. This is not entirely in school, it happens even at home, in churches, in mosques, temples, and everywhere else. So I would really like the speakers to comment something on the issue of how to deal with faith and the issues and the importance it plays in terms of the role of women in leadership. We have religious text, which is very old, it's been there for centuries, and there are concerns on what this religious text perceives women, and this has been, transferred from generation to generation. So specifically on faith, what can we do to ensure that in those churches or in those mosques, whatever they are teaching is something that is of empowerment to women and girls, and of course, other issues of equality?
Great question. You're gonna
Ragda, you can start with this one.
you unmute Ryder.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, 99.
I think she's stuck.
She's stuck.
So okay, in the interest
Yeah,
of
you
time,
can go
so
ahead.
we can get better.
Yeah.
I can jump in here. So that's a very relevant question. In Africa, we're very religious people, be it Muslim, Christianity, and various traditional religions that we practice. We're very, very religious people. We respect our culture, but we respect our religion more. So there's no change that can be done without engaging community members and community leaders and faith leaders specifically. Even when we try to do health campaigns, for example, if we really want the community to abide by the rules that the government is setting, the government works with the religious leaders to ensure that those religion followers actually implement those different behavioral changes that they need to see. We cannot defy the fact that religion plays a huge part in different restraints that have been put on women, but things are changing. I'm a strong believer of God, and I do believe in the Bible, and also the Quran. I feel like they're both referring to the same God, and God created both genders equally. But the way we understand things and the systematic patriarchal system that has been imposed on us made us believe the other way. So working with religious leaders to make them understand the concept of gender equality, and for them to teach their faith followers to practice that is very, very crucial if we really want to achieve gender equality. And when we say gender equality, we're not saying that men and women are equal or they're the exact same thing. No, they're both different. They're both biologically, they're different. Psychologically, they're different. And there are different inputs and aspects of life that they bring to the table. But they should be given equal opportunities as human beings. The human brain functions equally, regardless of the gender of the body that it's in. So we're not, when we're trying to teach those faith, when we're trying to engage those faith leaders to also advocate for gender equality, we're not telling them that men and women are exactly the same, but they should be able to access equal opportunities and create equal impact in their community. They're equal partners for change, they're equal partners for development, and they're equal worshippers of the God that they've put in place. So working with faith leaders to actually break this thing down to their faith followers is extremely crucial.
Yeah, so thank you very much. Religion plays a big role. I actually feel, even you see politicians want to channel through religion to convince the electorate. So it's very key. So with the mind in time, we have only 5 minutes to end the session. So I'll ask Raheda to give her views. Then I'll ask you, Brittania and Raheda, to give your conclusive remarks, and we'll call it a day. I don't want to keep it for long.
Thank you. I apologize. My internet was cut while I was trying to. I'm just keen to respond to this man because he raised a very good point, which is religion and related to women empowerment. So I think this is the umbrella that when people try to be anti-advocacy to women empowerment, they tend into going to the religious and trying to emphasize anything. I'm telling that because I'm a Muslim, and I know that when something happens, it's like, no, we go to specific things and say that women are less. But in all religions, I know that women have that God put them in a position, and in that lead way or another is leadership position. But we need to be um, to balance and to know that we need to go to religion if we are going to get it from the religious perspective, what's pros and cons, what happens, what the rights, and all of that, like around that aspect. We don't go to stick to single angle and then like cover we're actually, it's not on the fact. The fact is obvious, but it's how we narrate it. So that's the part of the religious people. So because you don't find religious people, all of them, even in specific religion, in the same direction, saying, emphasizing or describing the topic the same. So we need first, we need to work with them because they are influencing, and we cannot deny that there are a lot of laws they only get understand and believe what's being told by religious people. So we don't actually need to go into the debate between laws and religion and like politics. And no, we need to collaborate because we all have the same base. We need to reach the same level after that, but we are distracting ourselves into, okay, we're fighting each other rather than listening to each other. So that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, point of collaboration. It's not a competition, it's just cooperation. I wish people would understand that for sure. That's very good. I see one hand, two. Gloria, you spoke. There is someone called Honey. So quick question, and we end the meeting. Honey, do you want to ask your question really quick?
I have a question.
Oh,
can you hear me?
Yeah, ask the questions. I don't.
So I was asking questions, and this goes to especially people who have already been in leadership, to women. Like, what are some of the other, when you're given that space or platform to be able to be in leadership, like what are some of the limitations that women have gone through, apart from those we have mentioned, like people asking, like, now she's a woman who is in leadership, like what has she done? So like, what other limitations do women go through?
Limitations.
Okay, and maybe you may take all the questions so we can address them in our wrapping up addresses.
So another question, Naiga, you have a follow-up or not a question?
I have a question, sir.
Sure.
Okay, thank you for the recognition. I have an inquiry, because if you're talking about women empowerment, I believe it starts from the grassroots levels, by us recognizing the grassroots levels who are children, because a child in Africa due to child marriage is going to be married at an age of 14 years, and then of course she will have to bear a child, and that means she's already a lady, she's already a mother, and she has to teach her children. But however, she's still having the mindset of I cannot do anything because I'm a woman. But I believe I want to kindly help me elaborate on that issue, because if we're to ensure women participation in politics and in leadership, we have to empower them from a young age by reaching out to those children who cannot actually stand up for themselves, because due to financial constraints, a young child in a rural area cannot afford a packet of sanitary towels. She cannot face school because in her menstrual period, she cannot actually go out because she's scared. What will happen to me? What will happen? And I believe this is actually bringing down their confidence levels, because they believe they cannot do anything. A mother was just given birth to a child at the age of 15 years and has to educate this child by her own. And sometimes maybe the father passes on, or maybe she's now a single mother and she has to deal with everything. She has to teach the child, but she cannot do it on her own. I'm kindly inquiring how we can be able to do this, how we can be able to empower these children from the young generation, to empower them, because a leadership starts from a young age. For a woman to come into leadership, the confidence has started from a young age. I'm kind of requesting for an elaboration on that.
Sure. I hope those are the questions in place. Women in leadership, young age, starting with a young age. And the other question was the challenges women leaders face. And
okay. I'll start with the last question. We have to hold our governments accountable. These are the rights of children that they're defying. In African countries, 85% of Africa is rural, and rural areas of each country, of course, they're still facing child marriages. And a lot of countries have improved that by introducing a law of banning marriages before the age of 18. But the average marriage for a girl child still remains to be 14, 15. What is the government doing? We have to hold the government accountable to enforce the laws and to take measures on those parents that are marrying off their children at the age of 14. And things are getting better, of course, and each of us have the responsibility to advocate for it online and offline, working with the several organizations that we work with to stop child marriages and also period poverty. That's a very good point that she raised. A lot of children in the countryside, girls specifically, miss at least a week of school each month because they cannot afford to buy sanitary pads. And that's why Kenyan women and also Ethiopian women have advocated for and fought the taxation on sanitary pads for women to access sanitary pads, because it's not a luxury. It's a natural phenomena. So these things must be done by Ministry of Women and Children and Youth, and also different stakeholders. The private sector needs to be involved. The health organizations need to be involved. Community members need to be involved, because joint efforts are the ones that can result in changes. But let's not forget to hold the government accountable for the rules that they pass on, because this is defying the rights of children, not just women. By marrying of a child at the age of 14, that is stealing the dreams of that person from achieving the dream that they have, and also contributing to the development of the country itself. So let's hold our governments accountable and collaborate with private sector, health institutions, and community members to stop this discrimination on children. The limitation, of course, that's all we've been talking about throughout the hour-and-a-half session. We have culture, we have religion, we have mindsets that's been restraining women from achieving the potentials that they can reach. But there's still an opportunity. We have a young generation. We have strong women leaders that can advocate for women's rights and that can set good examples, and that can actually enforce laws that are affecting women specifically and girls as well. So the limitation remains to be worked on, but there's still room for change and opportunities. Young girls can actually look at female leaders that are doing great jobs right now. So yeah, they can at least imagine to become someone of influence in the future. And also, we young leaders are the leaders of now, not the leaders of tomorrow. Action starts today. Action starts with whatever capacity that we have to enforce the changes that we want to see, instead of just expecting the government of head of states to do it for us. Of course, we have to hold them accountable, but at the same time, we need to do our homework. And that's my also closing remarks.
Thank you so much. Doing your homework. That's good. Yeah. Yes, Rahida?
Yeah, I totally go with doing our homework part, and maybe to close on that, because I think all was greatly discussed. As said lately, actually we have two questions that answer to each other. When one of the participants asked about the barriers, the challenges, and at the same time another participant talked about the problem that happened to girls, to young girls. So what it can be into taking the leadership into action that translates this problem into like, you're here today to tell us that there is a problem happening in this specific place that needs a solution. That's how you took the action part of leadership. You don't need more empowerment, so you did it. So my only thought in that can be the sentence that you don't need to think very widely to start thinking of leadership. Just look around you, maybe like the next door, you'll find something that you will be take the leadership of, advocating for, and doing an action for it. Do your homework starting from your place. So I think all of those here, or myself, or even Bitiana, when we are speaking, we're not speaking of something happening in different country or different maybe region. We're speaking about things that we had ourselves. So think a bit further. We need to be the first with that. No, it's just like think around. Look at your homework, your challenges, and try to fix that. That is the reason that why every one of you and myself have something to say and contribute during this webinar. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly add one point to what Ragda said, because she has raised a fantastic point. There's a lot of civil society organizations and health organizations that are working towards ending child marriages, that are working towards period poverty, and all of these problems that have been mentioned. So it's up to us to look for those organizations and see how we can contribute to the efforts that they're making. If we can make our own institution and organization, great. But as an individual, we may not be able to do much unless we're supporting an already existing platform. So for us to look for those organizations, civil society movements, and even as a single voice voicing our concerns online and offline, let's contribute to the changes that are being done.
Awesome. Thank you very much for the wonderful thoughts. Thank you very much for the audience for raising such fantastic ideas and thoughts. And to our panelists, it's my exquisite pleasure for sure. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation as African Rebirth. We're very excited. We had other two panelists. Now, one is a woman MP in Uganda, and another one works with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, sorry, in Mali. So they had internet challenges. They have really tried, been texting me all day, all night. So they have failed to join. So if we were thinking also equality of outcome and equality of opportunities, we should really think about connectivity to all people across the world. So you find we have missed their ideas just because of internet. So thank you very much. I appreciate. As African Rebirth, it's our dream and desire to see an Africa full of opportunities, not for only one say part of people or something. And you find that I think women have the greatest numbers in Africa. So if we empower them, it means even our productive resources will increase automatically. So let's support our sisters. And the illusion in most things I see is when they say women, people here is just as if it is on the other planet, Mars. No, if they say women, these are your sisters in the house. I believe everyone comes from a family here. You might have sisters. If you don't have direct sisters, you have cousin sisters, something like that. So you start from there. And then your mothers, everyone here is born of a mom. So the mindset should shift from the global perspective and start like the family that they will be saying. And that I think will shape and change that. This is not only for the globe. We are not talking about the African Union. This is from society. And the greatest level of leadership is the responsibility, taking responsible actions, responsible mindset. And the greatest thing in Africa is mindset shift, ideological orientation that we are facing. So if we have that mindset aligned, I have no doubt that we size the next century. And 21st century that has been always, this is the 21st century for Africa. Can we shift it from words to action? That's our responsibility lies for us. So as African Rebirth, we are very excited for the wonderful, wonderful panelists. We are so grateful for you having made time and share your ideas. And I encourage everyone, we inspire young people and we transform young leaders. So I think you're inspired from today. your mindset shift. I can make a few conclusions from the summary that we've been discussing. One is mindset shift. Two is raising. It all comes back to you as an individual. You rise up. Don't wait the government to empower you. What if they have no agenda to empower you? You will die unempowered. So you have to step up. So step up and then take responsibility from your communities. So otherwise, have a wonderful weekend and thank you very much. And you can follow us on social media platform to learn more about African Rebirth and we can connect. I see many people in the chat box. I want to connect with Raheda. I want to connect with Britannia. I think you dropped your social media handles to get in touch. So let's connect. One thing in Africa, people are not connected. So let's connect from north to south to east to west. And we size the continent full of dreams and hopes for the future of Africa. So thank you very much. I'm so,
Thank you. So please let us know when you post the recorded session so we can share with those that missed it.
Absolutely.
It was a pleasure to speak with you.
I will share everything with you. So African Union Agenda 2063, I will see you guys there in 63 years from now. I hope everyone will still be young. So, so thank you very much. I'm so happy for this thing. So have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.